So, are you planning on how to gather data in your research? If you're thinking of using a pre-existing data collection or research tool, before you actually do so, take a few minutes to watch this video. A research tool is what is used to collect or to facilitate the collection of data in research. It is also known as a research instrument or a data collection tool, and examples are questionnaires, interview guides, and observation tools. Research tools may be pre-existing or new, but there's a rule of thumb. If there are quality pre-existing tools that fit your study, use them instead of making a new one. Why? Well, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, right? Creating a new tool is labor and time intensive, so why make a new one when there's already something available? You could be proceeding with data collection instead of making a new tool. Also, there's no guarantee that the new tool that you will make would be better than pre-existing ones. But wait, there are certain things that you need to consider when choosing pre-existing tools. The primary consideration is be sure that the tools that you choose are valid and reliable. Validity refers to a tool measuring what it aims to measure. For example, if you wanted to measure weight, you would use a weighing scale, right? Not a BP apparatus. That would be ridiculous because a BP apparatus measures blood pressure, not weight. In this case, it is obvious that a BP apparatus would be a wrong choice. Unfortunately, the choice of some research tools may not be obviously wrong. For example, you want to gather data about stress, but the tool that you are using measures anxiety. So you do not realize that you are gathering the wrong data. Imagine going through the painstaking process of data collection, analysis, and interpretation, and at the end, drawing conclusions based on the wrong set of data. That would be such a waste of time, money, and effort. Reliability, on the other hand, tells you how consistently a tool measures something. For example, you weigh 1 kilo of meat using a weighing scale and the reading is consistently 1 kilo. Even when you do it again and again and again, then we can say that this weighing scale is reliable. But if when weighing 1 kilo of meat you get varied readings such as zero point 0.8, zero point 0.9, 0.95, 0.96, 0.99, 1, 1.2, and 1.3 kilos, then the weighing scale is not reliable. So all of your weights that you have taken, except for the 1 kilo reading, are wrong. Again, what a waste of time, money, and effort. With these definitions of validity and reliability in mind, let us consider some truths related to research tools. This would be the basis of how you are going to examine pre-existing tools as to whether you would be using them or not. Truth number one, there are different types of validity. First is construct validity, which means that the tool matches the construct that you want to measure. What does construct mean? It is a concept or characteristic that cannot be directly observed. Instead, it can be measured by observing indicators that are associated with it. For example, intelligence, happiness, love, peace. All of this cannot be directly observed, so we just use indicators, which are associated with these constructs. For example, you want to use a questionnaire to be answered by parents about the safety of their home environment for their school-age children. For a tool to have construct validity, it should contain the indicators of a safe environment, such as items that should cover these characteristics: prevention of injury, prevention of infection, and promotion of emotional safety. Another example is a tool that's supposed to measure depression should really measure depression. But is it really measuring depression? It could be measuring just mood, or it could be measuring self-esteem, or it could be measuring anxiety, which are different constructs from depression. So we may view construct validity as a broad umbrella that covers the other types of validity. So the remaining two types will be evidences that there is really construct validity. So let us see what are these remaining two types. One is content validity. For a tool to have content validity, it should meet two criteria. First, it should be comprehensive, meaning it includes all of the indicators necessary to measure a construct. For example, going back to the questionnaire about the safety of the home environment for school-age children, it should contain all of the indicators related to prevention of injury, prevention of infection, and promotion of emotional safety. The second criterion is relevance of the items. For example, asking parents if they cover electrical outlets is relevant for toddlers, but is not relevant for safety of school-age children. The second type of validity is criterion validity, which means that the tool correlates with another tool, which is a gold standard measurement. That means that it is the best possible measurement. It has been proven to be valid. And this gold standard measurement measures the same concept at the present time for concurrent validity or in the future for predictive validity. For example, the APGAR score was originally designed to determine the need for assisted breathing or resuscitation in the newborn. It was developed by Dr. Virginia Apgar, who also tested it for concurrent validity by comparing the newborn's APGAR scores to laboratory results that indicate asphyxia. And what was the finding? A low APGAR score, that means 0 to 2, correlated with these lab results. So it indicated that the ones with the low APGAR score, 0 to 2, also had asphyxia based on the laboratory results. Therefore, APGAR score has concurrent validity. On the other hand, the predictive validity of college entrance exam scores may be established by finding out if these scores are related to academic performance using grades as indicators. If it is shown that the higher the entrance exam scores, the higher the grades are, then that means that college entrance scores have predictive validity. That means that by looking at the college entrance exam scores, we can predict who will do well academically. Truth number two, there are different types of reliability. First is test-retest reliability, which is the consistency of results when the same test is repeated on the same sample at a different time. For instance, you administer an IQ test to one group of students, and then after 1 month, you administer the same test to the same group, then you expect that there will be the same result. And this is needed when you are measuring something that you expect to remain constant, such as intelligence. So if the result of the first time and the second time varied, then that means that that IQ test has a low test-retest reliability. Don't use it. The second type of reliability is inter-rater reliability, which is the degree of agreement between different people assessing the same thing. Such as, for example, two census takers saying that the same house is made of light materials. But if one census taker says that it's made of light materials and the other census taker says that it's made of permanent materials, then there is no agreement between these two persons. People are subjective, so their perceptions differ. So, a high inter-rater reliability minimizes subjectivity. Therefore, if you're using an observation tool, look for one that has a high inter-rater reliability. Another type of reliability is parallel forms reliability. It measures the correlation between two equivalent versions of a test. So a test measures one construct, the other test measures the same construct, but there are different items, but they are equivalent versions. So sometimes it may be necessary to have two versions of a test, each version to be given to a group, such as, for example, um, Group 1 or Section 1 will have Set A of an exam and Section 2 will have Set B of an exam, but it should measure the same thing and they should be equivalent. It would be unfair if Section 1 will have a more difficult exam compared to the exam given to Section 2. Or the two versions of the test may also be given to a single group. For instance, you're doing a pre-test, post-test experimental research, and you opted to have two versions of a test, one to be given as pre-test and one to be given as post-test, then they should be equivalent versions. Another type of reliability is internal consistency. This measures the correlation between items in a test that are intended to measure the same construct. And if the responses to different items that measure the same thing contradict one another, then the tool is unreliable. For example, a test that measures introversion and extroversion, 20 items total, 10 items would indicate introversion and 10 items would indicate extroversion. And the introverted group checked all of the 10 items under introversion, but they also checked consistently 3 items under extroversion. So that means that this test is unreliable. Don't choose this. Truth number 3, a big yes to standardized tools. A standardized tool is a tool that measures a concept in an objective, standardized manner. It is rigorously developed and its validity and reliability are established. Example, the perceived stress scale is widely considered the gold standard instrument for measuring stress perception. Evidence supports the construct validity, internal consistency, and test-retest reliability of the perceived stress scale. And several studies also showed lack of variance of items across subgroups based on sex, race, and education, which means that it is appropriate for widespread use in the population. So, if you're looking for a tool to measure the perception of one's life regarding how stressful it is, then use the perceived stress scale. A tool may also be considered standardized if its validity and reliability are implied by the wide acceptance and use by knowledgeable practitioners. For example, the Apgar Score tool has been endorsed by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the American Academy of Pediatrics. So, they are considered the experts. Therefore, we consider the Apgar Score tool as something that is standardized. Truth number 4, even standardized tools are not perfect. The UPGAR score has an inter-rater reliability of 58 to 83%. Although literatures vary, the generally acceptable inter-rater reliability is at least 80%. So, what does this mean? It means that in almost half of the UPGAR scores given, the raters gave different scores to the same baby. This is unacceptable, and yet the UPGAR score is considered a standardized tool. So don't just accept a tool just because it is standardized. You have to scrutinize it because even standardized tools are not perfect. There are weaknesses or flaws. Truth number 5, not all pre-existing tools are standardized tools. Many pre-existing tools have been developed by their authors to gather data in their own researches. Most likely, they have been evaluated for their content validity and at least one aspect of reliability, usually internal consistency, using a small sample. Truth number 6, a high content validity index is not a guarantee that a tool really has a high validity. There's just one validity testing, and yet you cannot rely on it 100%. Why? The assessment of a tool's content validity is done by experts. But these experts are humans who may be subjective in their scoring. For example, it could depend on their mood, on the external circumstances, or on the relationship with the creator of the tool, or on the relationship with the advisor of the student who created the tool. So there is subjectivity, therefore they are not 100% um, right all of the time. The experts rate the relevance of the items present in the tool, but there are no penalty points for absent but necessary items. For example, let's just say that a tool to determine the presence of depression contains items related to depressed mood, decreased pleasure, slowness of thoughts, feelings of worthlessness, decreased ability to concentrate, and recurrent thoughts of death. But it failed to include the physical indicators of depression, which are insomnia or hypersomnia, significant weight loss or weight gain, and fatigue or loss of energy. The tool was then submitted to a panel of 3 experts who were asked to rate each item for relevance. And the panel rated each item as relevant because they are really relevant. But there are missing items. But the tool gets a perfect CVI. So what does this tell us? The tool that has many missing items may still have a high or even a perfect CVI as long as the items in the tool are relevant. So what are the implications of this? Don't be content with simply looking at the content validity index or CVI and say, oh, this is a valid tool because it has a high CVI. Determine, are there any missing indicators in the tool because these have not been evaluated by the panel of experts if they are missing. Next, a high reliability in one aspect does not guarantee a high reliability in other aspects. If a tool is satisfactory in terms of one aspect of reliability, it does not guarantee that it will be satisfactory in other aspects. As presented previously, there are different types of reliability and it is different from the others. So when reviewing the results of reliability tests of pre-existing tools, ask yourself, what type of reliability would be important to my study? For example, as I've mentioned before, if you're using observation as your method of your data collection, of course you would need a tool designed to indicate and or rate your observations. If you plan to use two or more observers or raters, then you need a tool with a high inter-rater reliability. Next truth, a tool may be valid and reliable, but it may not be fit in other aspects, such as appropriateness. For example, does the respondent understand the words used in the tool? Is the tool appropriate to the respondent's culture? For instance, the MMDST or Metro Manila Developmental Screening Test is a standardized tool for Metro Manila children only. I remember that me and my students used the MMDST for children in a rural area where there was no TV. There's an item in the MMDST wherein the child was shown several drawings and asked to identify them. Many of the children failed to identify the drawing of a dog, and yet these were already about 5 to 6 years old. Why? Because the drawing was that of a collie. It's the breed of the dog. These children have never seen a collie in their whole life and knew only Aspins, Asong Pinoy. Therefore, that particular item was not appropriate. It should also be fit in terms of cost. Can you afford using the tool? It should be fit in terms of practicability. Is it easy to administer? How practical is the tool in terms of time? If it is a questionnaire, how long will it take for the respondents to answer it? Does it require any special equipment or instrument? And is that available? So, these are aspects that need to be considered aside from validity and reliability. Therefore, you have to ask yourself, can I use the tool that is pre-existing? So what can you do? What can you do? First, click the subscribe button. Seriously now, what can you do? Ask the author's permission and adapt the tool. This means that you use it without modifications. As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, no need to fix it. You may also do something to compensate for the tool's flaws or weaknesses. For instance, you can improve the inter-rater reliability of a tool by training the raters who will be using the tool until they have already agreement in the rating of whatever they are observing. Such as the census raters who are rating the houses, they should be agreeing already if this particular house is made of light materials or that particular house is made of permanent materials. Or you may adapt. This means remove, add, or modify items in terms of content, words, or format. A very common adaptation that is used is translation to another language. If you're using this, then use the procedure of translate and back translate, which means, for instance, you are translating an English tool to Tagalog, then give the English version to someone who is an expert in both English and Tagalog and let that person translate the English to Tagalog. And then after the translation has been done, then give the Tagalog version to another person and let that person number two translate the Tagalog version back to English. Person number two should not see the original questionnaire. If adopting will not work, then create a new tool. This is labor intensive and time consuming, but it is better to do this rather than make do with a tool that is really wrong for your study. Watch out for my next video on how to create a research tool. Subscribe and click the notification bell so that you will know when this video has been uploaded.